So who doesn't like to play with the Jenga blocks here? Gonna just sort of lay this out and see how I can get this to work. Sort of different sizes, different feel. Can I get a stacked block to sort of make a 1 3/4 size piece of wood? And then what looks like a Jenga tower as well. That was the other thing I had in my head. The blocks are about 1 inch, so I'll have to sand some of this down. And as I wanted to get to that interlocked world of the blocks here, I just couldn't figure out how to do that correctly. And here I think I've got the right sort of size. I can make a bunch of sort of H figures and go at it. Some of these I started sanding down to sort of pull off the finish, but then I realized there really wasn't a finish. It was just the wood is a little bit waxy. These are made in China. And I originally thought they were alder, but I think this is that Pulwani wood. A little bit soft. Should glue up nicely as I start going at these. So then here's the sort of first H I glued up. I can put glue on the 4 pieces of the middle block. And then I have a spacer to just make sure the spacing is right. And I thought I could use those clamps, but they weren't going to work out. So I've got these Harbor Freight. I think these are 3.5-inch clamps from Harbor Freight. And this worked out perfectly. So I started gluing these up one by one by one. And as I built up a bunch of them, I started gluing those together as well. Once these got big enough, started to use more clamps, and that's when they got a little bit hairy to sort of glue up. Didn't have as much flexibility. I've got a custom shape here that I'm going to go with. I got this on one of the Project Guitar forums. I can't remember exactly where. Don't remember the exact shape of this, but I've had it for years. I'm going to reinforce the neck pocket up there so you can see where I'm going to reinforce and add a couple more strips to add some strength. And like I said, as it got bigger, I needed more clamps. So then we've got 2 plates glued up, and we draw the bottom plate and draw the top plate out. We're going to use the center line of one of the pieces. And then we had one final section we had to glue up. So make sure this is lined up. And then we'll do a lot of sanding here. I used a couple sanding beams and my sander. And about halfway through I realized the video died. But we sanded for about 20 minutes on each side to get it level. Take off the logo. And we add some glue here and glue this up. Wanted to make sure I got the glue on one piece really well. And so that's the bottom piece. You can see the neck has the reinforcement. We start with 2 clamps on the outside and then bring out all the clamps I have in the shop essentially. There's always that saying, you could never have enough clamps, and this is definitely that. These are those deep reach clamps from Harbor Freight. They work out pretty well. It just holds down that center. Could have thrown this into my wine press clamp, but I had enough here to do it the way I wanted to. Once we're all glued up, a couple sections need some reinforcement, so we're going to reinforce where the neck is. Pieces are about 7/8, and that neck pocket only goes down about 5/8, so I needed to add just a little bit into these pieces here, and that's what you see these additional pieces are. Give that neck pocket a little bit more stability. Flush cut saw now to take those pieces out where they're still high. Then we're going to route for the neck. 5/8 on the top with the top bearing bit and my template. Stuff route's really nice. And then I'm going to put some Kent Armstrong hand-wound pickups in here, and we're going to go with a standard telly setup. That's what I've got floating around the shop, and I've been wanting to try these pickups for a while. Move the clamps to get to the control plate. And then we'll cut this on the bandsaw really slowly. You can see all the chips starting to fall off as I'm cutting. I've got my bin off to the top there. Well, I'll save all of them just in case. And we're not going to take this to the router. We're going to just sand this. So we're sanding with the template on it first so I can see how much more I need to go. We'll start with this 120 grit, then we'll move up to 180. From there I've got like a 3/8 bit, and we're going to drill through the control wiring for the pickup. And I'm making sure that I'm actually going through one of the Jenga blocks themselves here, right through that center. Well, it's off the center line, but it goes through the full block. That way I don't get any blowout on the wood. Do that for the top. And then one of the chips needed a little bit of material on the top. It didn't look right, so I glued an extra piece up there. And then we're going to do a flat mount output jack. And we're using a 7/8 bit to drill for that. I needed a little bit more wood for the control plate. Needed to glue onto something, so I marked it, and then I cut a little piece of a Jenga block and glued it on. So I'm using the center line of the Jenga block, and I'm sort of missing that other side, so this was my cheap hack to glue and use that set screw to hold down that control plate. Lots of sanding on the sides here. No way was I going to take a router to this. I felt like it was going to spit everything out at me. So we started with 180 and moved up to 320 to get it smooth. And then I've got a neck laying around that we're going to use. We'll just drill it out. And then, like I said earlier, we're using some Kent Armstrong hand wound pickups here. We'll get these all wired in. I was lucky enough to get this all lined up as I planned it out in my head. And I've got solid wood across the back of the bridge to drill this into. String it up and we'll go live in video here for some awesome sound clips. So here's the Jenga caster, Jazz Jenga Master. I don't know what to call it yet, but this project turned out pretty good. It took me a long time to glue all this up. I've actually been working on this since the summer. I threw on a plain maple neck. It hasn't adjusted yet, so I haven't made the final sort of perfect setup to it. The one thing that really surprised me about this guitar is how resonant this body is. If I run my finger across sort of the back edge here, and even if I hold the pickups, I can hear that sort of scraping in the pickups themselves. It's very resonant, which I was not expecting. I was a little bit fearful that the way I glued this up, I'd get a couple pieces to crack. I could notice that if I starved the glue joint, it didn't sit as well. So a couple of the pieces as I was cutting sort of fell apart, but I haven't noticed that. I'm glad I reinforced the neck and sort of had in my mind how I wanted to mount the bridge across one of the stronger pieces. But overall, the guitar was really cool, very light and resonant, and it sounds really good. I put some Kent Armstrong hand wound, made in the USA pickups in this. Kent's been helping me out on another couple projects, so I wanted to put his set in here. This is the neck. This is the bridge. Fun project. Took a little bit too long to build, but I've got a lot of these weird one-off builds I've been doing lately. If I had to do this again, I would be a little bit more careful gluing up the blocks. When I was gluing up the blocks, I didn't always clamp them down in a couple spots. Like you can see right here, I've got a little bit of a lip. And then I still got to go back and sand this corner and this upper bout a little bit better. When I was doing the sanding, I hit the sides pretty good, but I probably could have done this a little better. Obviously didn't do string through because I wouldn't have had the room to do it, but a fun project. My son actually wanted this once he saw it because the girls got the Flippy Mermaid guitar, so just another alternative built guitar. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.